Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the first season of the anime Drifting Dragons on Netflix. And I really enjoyed this anime. It is a really good Netflix anime. Animation's good, the dub's really good, and the premise just works pretty well. Now, Drifting Dragons is interesting because there's action and characters and everything going on, but it doesn't feel like I can call it like a complete action anime or a complete character one. It does a good job of fusing everything together for this cohesive whole. So, Drifting Dragons is set in a world where it's essentially kind of steampunkish, where zeppelins are pretty much used, and it's essentially kind of like whaling with dragons in the sky and everything. And you're like, okay, let's kind of see how that goes. And most of the dragons don't look like traditional dragons. It's interesting how they are able to pretty much make them into sky whales doing other kind of stuff. Like, granted, they do have like offensive capabilities and shit, especially when we get into like the middle of the season. But we're just seeing that we followed this ship that's pretty much like the Bebop. Kind of like a crew that pretty much gets by. We've got our one dude, Mika, who's essentially just a dude who's really into eating dragons. He's always looking for the next dragon. He's always into it when they're like going and taking the dragons out. And he is considerate of the dragons. Well, he doesn't like using certain explosives and definitely doesn't like doing poison because it affects like the taste of the meat and everything. And he doesn't want to like prolong their suffering. And I'm like, okay, he's a pretty interesting guy. Then we got this one, Vonabelle. She's an interesting one because we kind of delve into her. She drinks a lot, and she's trying to figure out why she wants to kind of like continue being a Draker. And the main one that we kind of follow is Takita, as she's like the newbie trying to figure out the ropes and all that. And she is not an annoying protagonist. Granted, she can do some annoying things, but I'm not like being like, oh god, she just did that and everything. She might get into situations that are kind of awkward or whatnot, but I'm not like, oh, let's just kick this bitch off this thing because she's annoying the fuck out of everyone. No. She's really into learning about being a Draker and getting into this profession. Now, we learned that she's did a lot to try and get onto here and that she's got debts and everything because there's one portion where there's like this really small dragon that's actually able to like float about on the ship, and she tried to get at it so that way she could pay off her debt faster, and they kind of played it off as kind of a greed thing, and I'm just like, I can see it. They really didn't do that good of a job of making it more greed. I'm more like she just wants to pay off her debt, and when things went south, instead of trying to snowball the effect, she's like, I kind of need help because one of the crew gets like bit by it, and they're trying to figure out what's going on and if it's venomous and whatnot. Of course, that gets wrapped up in that they eat the damn thing, and we find out that it escaped from another ship, and it was worth like 2 billion. I'm like, ooh, shit. So that's definitely where a Bebop parallel is like, yeah, they kind of like caught this kind of thing and they ate it, and it was worth a fuck ton of money. But the beginning is kind of like showing the whole setup and everything, getting us into it, seeing how the whole draking thing works out, how pretty much go out, kill a dragon, pretty much get it into the ships, and then get to a town, butcher it, and sell it off. And we also get into how certain towns view the Drakers. Pretty much, they are like, oh, whenever you guys are around, dragons attack. And it's like, well, what if we're just around when dragons are attacking and then we take their asses out? Yeah? And I'm like, okay, interesting world. Seeing how all the different ones kind of view draking and all that. And evidently there was a dragon in a nearby, or close to a nearby town. So they set off and kind of like go after it and figure out how to do it. So we kind of just start seeing all these different kind of things. It's very much episodic. Now, granted, they still build on each other, but I really like how well done the episodic nature is. You really don't need to see, except for like certain arc ones, in a certain order. And I'm just like, oh, that's really cool because when you do an episodic one, you can always kind of like explore a certain aspect of a world a little bit better than if you have to juggle what's going on with the main plot as well. So, like, okay, this is how the ship works. This is what they kind of do when they have this kind of thing to deal with, like if there's a dragon fucking around on the ship, and how people kind of react to that, and how our characters react to that. It's really kind of cool. Then we get into stuff that, oh, there's sky pirates as well. What the fuck? Ah, shit. And then, like, well, we need a lot of money to, like, do repairs, so they're able to get one kind of floaty dragon and get on up with that. We see stuff about certain urban legends, such as like this glittering dragon, and we see this really amazing sequence of this storm and how they're trying to navigate through it. And of course, this glittering dragon pops up and is able to lead them to safety. And of course, Mika's like, I wonder what that thing tastes like. But they let it go, and it's like, oh, that's kind of that's interesting, because we get Mika is like, okay, yeah, I really want to eat that thing. Whereas the other crew member, Gerard, is like, yeah, he's kind of come into contact with something that his dad had saw, and that gives him more connection with his father. It's like, hey, that's kind of cool. So we get to kind of the middle of the season, and that's where it kind of goes, well, not completely nuts, but we get this interesting arc as we see them pretty much getting into a town. They're supposed to be there for a festival and have some shore leave since it's been a while. And we see all these kind of subplots going on. We see another draking ship come in with a giant fucking dragon. We see the crew with Gerard. Most of the guys go to pretty much a brothel. And he gets roped into this one prostitute, Katja. And she hasn't taken any clients yet. But she, of course, is pretty much not there by her own will. And it's kind of cool to see them have their own kind of like little adventure and whatnot, and see their relationship kind of form. Now, granted, it doesn't do much. I mean, we have it within the episode arc, but it's pretty much done once the arc's over. Now, granted, we'll have to see if they kind of come back to that later on. But what happens is that big draking ship that brought in that dragon, they tried to poison it and thought it was dead, but it wasn't, and starts wreaking havoc on the town. It's like, holy shit. And trying to figure out how they were going to like mess with this thing, because it can essentially create this like giant energy beam with its wing things. It's really kind of weird because these dragons use their hearts to kind of float. The wings are more kind of like almost more show. These are used for like energy attacks. It's like, shit. And of course, the other more profitable draking company really gets fucked over, but of course our crew decides to help them out a little bit and be like, hey, let's do this together. Of course, two of the people that were involved in a brothel fight with the other crew, with the crew that we're following, is like, hey, we're gonna just drop bombs on it and piss it off even more. But our main crew is able to get into it, get it into a position where they could use the ship to like take it out, and we then see the aftermath. The city does have a lot of damage, but it could have been a lot worse, because as the dragon was rampaging, it was getting close to like the dragon oil like refinery section, and if that had went up, the whole city would have been lost. But because of the actions they were able to do, and we had seen that they had wrestled with being like, should we help and should we not help? I mean, we're drakers, we should be able to handle this stuff, but we should really evacuate more people. And they decide to help the people out, and they're able to take them out and help butcher it and everything, and they of course donate the proceeds of the whole dragon kill to the town to help them rebuild. It's like, oh, that's really cool. It's nice to kind of see what is kind of important to these crew members. And it was even the kind of accountant dude that did. He's like, hey, if we don't do this, they'll be pissed off at us. But I mean, yeah, it does give you a material benefit to do it, but it's also the right thing to do to help these people out, as we see them gathering and making kind of like these goulash kind of thing. And that's another thing. I really like how it's essential that they show kind of different dragon meat foods in each episode. Like, it's part of the title and all that, and seeing how all this stuff is done. And it's like, hey, that's kind of cool. And learning about all these different kind of things and kind of the culture behind the foods as well. So they got that all fixed out. We see that Gerard gets his hair cut by Katja, so that way she also has like a lock of hair, and then they leave. And they also butcher up the dragon, but since it's poisoned, it's going to take 3 years for the meat to be edible again. So Mika's like, God damn it, I wanted to eat that shit. But they go off to return like 3 years later. Well, we'll see because the end of the season doesn't go that far, and we'll have to see if they bring that back up. So, but I'd really like to see that because I'm like, hey, this sounds interesting, and I'd like to see what happens after they've rebuilt and everything. So we get kind of towards the end, and we get well after the Sky Pirates because there was a really weird thing. They're like they'd seen this ship on the ocean and nobody was on it. They got this one book from it before they got attacked by the Sky Pirates, and we got a kick-ass action scene with Mika beating the shit out of people. That book becomes important as they're pretty much going after this dragon herd. They're like, this is what they've been preparing for the whole season, so that way they can pretty much get out of the red and be in a better financial position. Well, they find it, and it's just I gotta hand it to them. They do a lot of cool work of making all the dragons kind of different and have interesting designs and different characteristics. Because we see this herd, it's this giant purple ball, and it's essentially this liquid ocean kind of thing that they have like congealed around themselves as they've got all these like little ones. And I say little, but it's not like the small one that flew in the ship. It's more of just not as big as we've been used to, but still big enough to be worth something. So they're essentially trying to shoot in with the harpoons, and they bring one out, but it knocks Takeda off, and we really see how she's kind of affected the crew. And they're like, she's been doing really well, and they're all bummed out about this, and they're just like, what do we do? Vonabelle really feels for it because she feels like she should have been able to do something to stop it because of the dragon going crazy. Same with Mika, and of course they're up top there. Takeda is pretty much down on the ground because she had been pretty much wrapped around the dragon as it was going off. And she's okay, but she's got an injured leg and puts the dragon out of its misery. But then, of course, its baby pops up, and she has to kind of deal with that. And we get this hunter that pops up, and they're like, hey, what's going to go on here? It's like, oh, okay. Whew. And then, of course, she gets really sick because of the injury on her leg. And, of course, the hunter is able to, well, as they are butchering the dragon, that's when Takeda kind of like passes out, and then she wakes up like, hey, look at this food. And Takeda, of course, is wrestling with the fact of she kills these things. And this is the first one that she killed herself and butchered, and she feels bad because she did that to the baby, and she decides to still eat it to honor pretty much the life that she took. And we're like, it's just that kind of cycle and circle. I'm like, interesting. So that's, I don't mind that. I'm intrigued that they're able to go into that kind of depth and be like, okay, that's cool. Thank you for going into that and be like, okay, are these people just murder hungry, or are they like, okay, it's a cycle, we got to make sure that everything like this works out, that we don't take out these dragons. So she pretty much gets back up, and she follows the hunter to the hunter's like relative, and gets kind of like some more healing done with her leg. And we see that the baby dragon is kind of freaking out because it should be flying in the sky. And we see that like every so often this mountain starts spewing smoke and shit, and we see all of these dragons pretty much coming around. It's like, holy shit. And she wants to get it up there to get it back with its kind, and it's just what she's got to do. So the hunter lady follows her, takes her pretty much up, and that's of course where it intersects back with her ship. They're able to get her back on board, and she's like, hey, get me to that thing. And we see all these things going on at once. We see the herd thing doing its thing. We see all these other dragons pretty much popping up to take that. We see this giant apex predator pop up. Mika and Vonabelle are able to take that out. Takeda is able to fly there with this gyrocopter that they had acquired from the other draking company, because they kind of pulled their ass out of the fire with that thing back in the city, and they're able to get the baby dragon in there, and she's like, hey, don't get eaten in the neck. Don't get eaten, man. I want to take you out. You know what I mean? But still, it's not like a kind of crazy, ruthless kind of thing. It's more of a like, okay, be good. I want to be the one that takes you out. It's like, nice respect. Cool. And that's pretty much where it ends. I don't know what they did with that giant ass dragon because I really wanted to see what they would have done with like its butchering of that, but they pretty much made out with that, and they keep on continuing doing their draking duties as the crew kind of returns to its sense of normalcy after rescuing Takeda. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I like how we just go through, learn more about the world, and it works very well. I didn't get annoyed by any of the characters. I liked seeing them and learning new things about them. Like, one of them is a really good artist. People were freaking out, like, who did this one? It's like, oh, I can draw it from memory and stuff like that. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. That was a funny little interaction that they had there. And the action's pretty cool. Seeing him take out the dragon, seeing Mika take on the Sky Pirates, but yet it didn't feel like one was over influenced for the other. The action worked with the plot, and the plot went along at a nice pace with each episode going on. And I would highly recommend this to anyone to really watch. Now, granted, there is blood and kind of violence and all that, so like really young kids would probably get freaked out, but I'd highly recommend anybody to watch this because it's very well done. The animation of the CGI works very well. There's certain instances where there's like 2D, but it doesn't pop up like and completely ruin the effect or anything. It's one of the best CGI ones I've watched in a while, other than like High Score Girl. Those are like two really good ones where the CGI doesn't look fucking weird. It just works. And the characters are cool. They delve into them. Now granted, there's like 12 episodes. So there's only a certain amount of character delving that they can do, but I would hope that this gets some more seasons so that way we can just learn more about the characters and see where it kind of goes. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.